What happens when a child disappears and no one brings them home? Well, for 25 years, Andrea Michelle Reyes was just a name on a database, a face on a missing persons poster, a tragic mystery with no ending. Until now. This is the story of a father who never stopped searching, a mother on the run, and a case so tangled, so buried under time, it almost slipped through the cracks forever. Now, we've all heard of helicopter parents, you know, the ones who hover, check homework, overanalyze snack choices. But what about parents who take things a little too far? Parents who, well, just take their kid and disappear for a quarter of a century. Authorities tried everything: age progression sketches, public pleas, private investigators, but finding one missing person in a country of 130 million people, that's not a search, that's a miracle waiting to happen. Then, in 2023, something unbelievable happened. A single digital breadcrumb, a sliver of hope, a detective who refused to let this case stay buried in the past, and a DNA test that cracked the mystery wide open. This is where the part-time internet sleuths and true crime junkies lean forward in their chairs. You know the ones. The people who binge-watch every documentary, convinced they could solve a cold case from their couch. Well, get ready, because this one's a wild ride. Andrea Michelle Reyes was found, 25 years later, alive. But the story doesn't end there. Because the woman accused of taking her? Well, let's just say she's still out there. And before you ask, no, the U.S. arrest warrant doesn't apply in Mexico. Because, of course, it doesn't. So, what do you do when the missing are found, but justice is still missing? This is the case of Andrea Michelle Reyes, and it's one you won't forget. A quiet neighborhood. A toddler, barely old enough to say her full name, is fast asleep in her crib. Her father, believing his daughter is safe, closes his eyes for the night. But by morning, she's gone. Not a trace, not a note, not a single clue left behind. Just an empty crib and a father's worst nightmare unraveling before his eyes. Now, let's be honest. When a child goes missing, most people picture shadowy figures, unmarked vans, maybe even some high-tech kidnapping conspiracy. But this case was different. Because the person behind Andrea's disappearance wasn't a stranger in the night. It was her own mother. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. A mother taking her child sounds understandable. Maybe even forgivable, depending on the circumstances. I mean, isn't a mother supposed to protect her child, keep her safe? But here's the thing. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about protection. This was about control. And Rosa, she had a plan. Andrea wasn't supposed to be with Rosa. A judge had made that decision crystal clear. Full custody was granted to her father. Rosa was legally not supposed to take her. And yet, she did. So how do you make a toddler disappear in broad daylight? You don't just stroll through TSA with a diaper bag and a guilty conscience. Authorities believe Rosa had help. And where did she go? Straight to Mexico. And just like that, Andrea was gone. Now, if you're thinking, well, just go get her. Congratulations, you've officially thought harder about this than the US legal system did. Because here's the problem. You ever try returning an item to a store with a no refunds policy? Yeah. Now imagine that store is an entire country. Mexico doesn't just hand people over because we ask nicely. And Rosa, she knew that. Meanwhile, Andrea's father wasn't just sitting around waiting for answers. He packed his bags, he traveled to Mexico, he searched, and searched, and searched. But every lead, a dead end. He never found her, never even got a whisper of where she might be. Andrea Michelle Reyes became nothing more than a face on a missing persons poster. And for 25 years, nothing. Until someone, an investigator with fresh eyes, decided that this case wasn't over yet. And what happened next changed everything. They say time heals all wounds, but for one father, time was the enemy. Every second that passed meant his little girl was slipping further away. Imagine this. You know who took your child. You know where they ran. But the law, the system, the invisible red tape stretching across 2 countries, it might as well be an iron wall. And for 25 years, that wall never budged. Andrea's father wasn't the kind of man to sit back and do nothing. The second he realized his daughter was gone, he did what any desperate parent would do. He searched, and searched, and searched. He made multiple trips to Mexico. He walked the streets, asked questions, showed her picture to anyone who would listen, and yet, nothing. For every step forward, he hit a wall. Rosa Tenorio wasn't just hiding, she was erased. No paper trail, no phone records, no known addresses. It was as if she had vanished into thin air and taken Andrea with her. For the police, it was just another cold case, another missing child lost in the endless sea of unresolved disappearances. But Andrea's father? He never gave up. The FBI even got involved. Age-progressed photos were released. Tips trickled in, some promising, most utterly useless. One witness claimed they saw Andrea working at a gas station in Arizona. Another swore she was living under a new name in Texas. Spoiler alert, both leads were about as helpful as a GPS with a dead battery. Years passed. People forgot. The case faded into the background. But for Andrea's father, every single day was a reminder of what he lost. It has been 10 years since Andrea Michelle Reyes vanished without a trace. Authorities urge anyone with information to come forward. Each passing year, the updates became shorter, the headlines smaller, the hope dimmer. He never stopped believing, even when the world did, even when the search dwindled to nothing. Because somewhere, his little girl was out there. And then, when all hope seemed lost, a detective decided to take one more look. Cold cases are called cold for a reason, but some detectives refuse to let them freeze over. Enter Detective Keelan Nivikoff, 2023, New Haven Police Department. She wasn't there when Andrea vanished in '99, but something about this case, about this father still searching, still fighting, refused to let her look away. Most detectives see a case like this and move on. Nothing left to find, they say. The trail's gone cold. But Nivikoff, she had other ideas. She started from scratch, combing through decades-old reports, phone records, even handwritten notes from officers long retired. But something was missing, a piece of the puzzle that had been overlooked for years. And then, like a ghost from the past, a clue emerged. Social media, the double-edged sword of modern life. It can ruin you, expose you, connect you, or in this case, find you. A profile linked to Puebla, Mexico, a young woman, similar age, similar features. Could it be her, after all these years? It was time to find out. Most cold cases don't get a second chance, but Andrea's did. And what happened next? It would rewrite history. This was it. After 25 years, Andrea Michelle Reyes was no longer missing. She had been found. How do you tell someone they've been missing for 25 years when they never even knew they were gone? This wasn't just any phone call. This was the phone call. The one that could bring a missing girl home or shatter everything. A soft, hesitant voice answers on the other end. There's no script for a conversation like this. No Missing Persons 101 handbook. No easy way to say, "Hey, surprise, your entire life is a lie." So, Nivikoff treads carefully, introduces herself, keeps it simple. No flashing lights, no dramatic, "you're coming with us" moment. Just one woman sitting in a cramped office trying to undo 25 years of the unknown. At first, Andrea, now going by a completely different name, doesn't believe a word of it. And why would she? Her life in Mexico was all she had ever known. Connecticut? A missing person? It sounded like the plot of a bad soap opera. But then, Detective Nivikov brings up something no one else could have known. A birthmark. A tiny, barely noticeable mark behind Andrea's left ear. A childhood detail buried under time and new memories. But words could only go so far. What came next? Science. And science doesn't forget. Enter Othram, a forensic DNA testing lab specializing in the impossible. If Andrea really was Andrea, this test would prove it. 99.9999% match. Andrea Michelle Reyes had been found. For 25 years, one man refused to give up. He searched. He begged for answers. He hit dead end after dead end. And then, the call came. This wasn't a press conference moment. No cameras, no reporters. Just a father and daughter, separated by time, trying to find the words to close the gap between them. She picked up the phone. Hello? And just like that, after 2.5 decades of silence, Andrea Michelle Reyes was no longer missing. She was home. A missing child, found. A father's nightmare, over. A happy ending, right? Almost. But one thing still lingers like a bad plot twist no one asked for. Justice. Because while Andrea Michelle Reyes is home, the woman who took her, Rosa Tenorio, she's not behind bars. She's not even in the United States. Nope. She's sipping coffee somewhere in Mexico, living her life like an international fugitive with a really good travel agent. Yep, you heard that right. The arrest warrant is as useful as a buy one, get one free coupon in a country that doesn't take it. So, here's the legal dilemma. The US wants Rosa back. Connecticut would love to see her in cuffs. But Mexico, well, Mexico isn't exactly handing her over on a silver platter. Why? Because extradition laws are tricky, and international justice even trickier. It's not that Mexico supports child abduction. It's just that there's a long bureaucratic to-do list before anything happens. And in the meantime, Rosa is still free. So while Andrea is finally reconnecting with the father she never knew, Rosa is avoiding accountability like it's an unpaid parking ticket. And that raises the real question. Should she be brought to justice? Some say absolutely. She kidnapped a child. She took away 25 years of memories, birthdays, milestones. She denied a father his daughter. The law says she committed a crime, and crimes need consequences. Others? Well, they see a mother who might have truly believed she was protecting her child. They wonder, was this an act of malice or desperation? Should she face time behind bars, or is the punishment simply living with the truth? Right now, the answer is in legal limbo. The US might keep pushing for her extradition, or maybe Rosa will live out the rest of her days, free but forever looking over her shoulder. For 25 years, a father searched for his daughter, and in the end, he won. He got her back. But Rosa, she's still a ghost in the system, an unfinished chapter in an otherwise miraculous story. So what happens next? That's up to the law. And maybe, just maybe, the weight of time finally catching up to Rosa Tenorio. Some cases go cold. Some disappear into old file cabinets, gathering dust. Some fathers give up. Some detectives move on. But some stories, they refuse to be forgotten. This is one of those stories. Andrea Michelle Reyes was a name whispered in missing persons databases for years. A child whose face was frozen in time on age-progressed posters. A case that seemed lost to the void. And yet, here we are, 25 years later. A father who never stopped searching. A detective who refused to let the trail go cold. A daughter who had no idea she was missing, until she wasn't anymore. Andrea's story isn't just a victory. It's a message, a warning, a hope. Because if one missing child can be found after 2.5 decades, what about the others? It's a haunting question. How many more children are out there, living lives they were never meant to live? How many missing persons cases could still have answers waiting in an old case file, a DNA database, a forgotten photograph? What if someone out there right now, watching this, listening to this, has the next clue in a decades-old mystery? What if justice isn't lost, just waiting to be found? Andrea is home, but Rosa Tenorio, she's still out there. And justice? Well, that's another fight for another day. Some will say this story isn't over until Rosa faces the consequences. Others will say the real victory was Andrea's return. Either way, this case reminds us of one thing. Never assume a case is closed just because the years keep passing. Because sometimes the past has a way of catching up. If you found this case as unbelievable as we did, hit that like button. Subscribe for more true crime stories that prove reality is often stranger than fiction. And let us know in the comments, do you think justice was truly served? Should Rosa face the law? Or is Andrea's return the only ending that matters? Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, some stories are never really over.